"May the odds be forever in your favor," is the line that the government of Panem feeds to the tributes from each district as they get ready to enter into the Hunger Games. Now, the Hunger Games have been occurring for the last 75 years, and in the final Hunger Games, two people stood tall and took a stand against President Snow and his corrupt government. Peter Malarkey and Katniss Everdeen from District 12 survived the 74th Hunger Games, and then were brought back for the 75th, and are now taking a stand to take down President Snow and the government. What started in the Hunger Games and then continued in Catching Fire is concluded in the two-part Mockingjay. Now, I have read all three novels by Suzanne Collins, and Catching Fire was actually my favorite of the three. But it turns out Mockingjay was my least favorite of the three books, mainly because of Collins' style of writing that she tended to brush over or basically just ignore events, where she would be like leading up to something and then suddenly we're just pushed forward in time saying, and then she wakes up. And then we don't see any of the events that occurred while the time, say, Katniss was out or Peeta was out. And basically it's another character who comes in and basically just spills exposition to fill them in, and film us in to just what exactly happened. I wasn't too keen on that, and I felt that was kind of lazy writing, and that's something that should have been like laid out so the reader could visualize all the events that occurred in those pretty major moments. Now, as a result, the movies have been pretty faithful to their source material, which basically concerned me when going into Mockingjay. I was wondering, since I knew Mockingjay was my least favorite in the series, I was wondering, since they're making it into a two-part film, that they're going to flesh things out and present it differently in a cinematic style, so it's much more enjoyable than it was to read. I'm afraid the odds are not in this favor this time, as Mockingjay Part 2 is the least of the entire series, and because they remained faithful to the source, the same exact issues that I had with the storytelling is present in Part 2, which is the final chapter in the Hunger Games movie franchise. And that is pretty unfortunate, that a pretty solid movie franchise basically ends with a whimper. And it's kind of a very disappointing, I would say. I really enjoyed Mockingjay Part 1, because basically with the template of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows was the one that really started studios into thinking, it's like, hey, let's take the last book of a franchise and then we'll split it into two. I have not seen Breaking Dawn, nor have I read Breaking Dawn, Twilight, so I have no idea if that really needed to be two movies. I've heard both sides of the coin, saying some people said it didn't, and other people said it did. And Mockingjay was the same way. I wasn't sure if it really needed two movies, but if it's going to be two movies, I was thinking that they were going to flesh things out. Really open up the world and show you the things that we didn't get to see. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2 handled things perfectly. It basically set things up in Part 1, and then Part 2 was the all-out battle at Hogwarts, and everything just came together perfectly. Now here, Mockingjay Part 1 was a lot of build-up, but it was very engaging build-up. There were like events happening that was really interesting and really cool. We knew this was leading to something bigger, and we knew in the second part that's where it's all gonna all be laid out, and everything is gonna come together, and the shit's gonna hit the fan, and snow's going down. And for a viewing audience who's never read the book, they're probably like thinking, yeah, this is it, the one where snow's gonna go down, the most hated president in Panem, and we hate this guy, kill him, get him, take him down. If you read the book, there's no surprises. And as I said, it's underwhelming as a result. Performance-wise, Jennifer Lawrence and Josh Hutcherson are great as Katniss and Peeta, and their relationship is continually explored in the final film to great effect, and that was actually a quite engaging part. But the events that surround the ancillary characters, all the other characters like Gale and Hamish and Snow and Plutarch and President Coin. It was rather dull. For an action franchise to end on a dull note is rather shocking. The best part of the entire movie was a sequence that takes place in the sewer, and it was quite exciting, quite suspenseful, unfortunately marred by some less than inspired CGI characters, but it was actually a pretty cool sequence in the film, and the rest of the movie didn't live up to that, and that moment had a moment of excitement, and the rest of it was very lackadaisical, very slow, and you would expect for build up and the character development. It's like it's okay for that, but we've been invested in these characters for 3 films already. We know what they got to do. We know the situation. Why does this have to be so tedious? I guess you would say. It's again, I blame it on the source material, and Suzanne Collins adapted the screenplay, and as a result, she was very faithful to her book, and the problems that I had with the book are carried over completely into the movie, and I was quite disappointed with Mockingjay-Part 2. I mean, I enjoyed Mockingjay-Part 1. Mockingjay-Part 1, I gave about a 7 out of 10. Mockingjay-Part 2, I would 5.5. I'd give it a 5.5 out of 10. It was never boring. It was just, well, actually, it just wasn't exciting. I was going to say dull, but there were moments of excitement, and then you use that as a barometer against the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie is rather dull. And I remember back in the day there were complaints about the multiple endings of Return of the King, but I had no issue with that because you had to wrap up these story arcs for 6 characters or so that we've just spent the last 10 hours, or if you are seeing the extended cuts, the last 13 hours with, and we want to wrap those up. But the ending in Mockingjay Part 2, when it ends, it just keeps going. I'm like, isn't this done yet? What now? Is it not done yet? What now? End this already. What? It was just the way it was edited and handled was just dragging it out and milking it, and just like I was ready to go home, but as I said, the ending is faithful to the source material. So if you read the book, there's no surprises. So, but unfortunately for me, as someone who read the books and seen all the movies, Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2 was a very disappointing finale to the franchise. So, if you like my review, hit that like button below. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, hit that subscribe button so you can stay on top of my reviews as they come in. For those of you who have already subscribed, thank you very much. So, what say you? Were you looking forward to Mockingjay Part 2? Have you seen Mockingjay Part 2? What were your favorite parts? What were your least favorite parts? Have you read the books? How do you think they compare? Contrast, apples to oranges sometimes. Were you a fan of the series, or were you a fan of the movies? Let me know. I'm very curious to find out, and comment below. So, until next time, we'll see you at the movies.